Hi, my name is Shreyas, and I will be talking about the three most important aspects of Buddhism. So let's get started. Before diving into the three key aspects of Buddhism, let me briefly summarize what Buddhism is. Buddhism is a religion that originated in the Indian subcontinent and has since spread across the world, especially in countries like China, Japan, and the United States. It was founded by Siddhartha Gautama, a prince in ancient India. After witnessing the realities of life, such as old age, sickness, death, and asceticism, otherwise known as the Four Sights, he decided to leave his royal life in search of the truth about human existence. After years of extreme renunciation, he chose the middle path, a balanced way of living that kept him alert but nourished. While meditating under a Bodhi tree at the Bodh Gaya, he attained enlightenment, and from that point on, he began sharing his insights with others, which would ultimately lead to the birth of Buddhism. I believe that after having covered this, now I can dive into what I consider to be the three most important aspects of Buddhism, which are the different ways of practice, the concept of suffering, and that it is a religion without a deity. So, first, there are different ways to practice Buddhism. Since Buddhism has spread across the world, it is not surprising that different ways to practice Buddhism have emerged. This is mainly due to cultural influences, as seen with groups like the Myanmar Buddhists, American Buddhists, and the Mahayana Buddhists. In Myanmar, there are many Buddhists who use weapons to persecute the Rohingya Muslims, which contrasts with the peaceful image many in the West associate with Buddhism. Buddhists in America are also different, as they believe in concepts such as religious individualism, Buddhists in science, and an emphasis on ethics, moral values, and social welfare. And lastly, Mahayana Buddhism is the largest branch of Buddhism, interpreting Buddhism as more supernatural than natural. It did not restrict enlightenment to monks and nuns who renounced everything, and it allowed people to rely on compassion of others instead of by themselves. These examples of different ways Buddhism is practiced is important because it highlights how even though Buddhism is mainly portrayed as a rather peaceful religion in the West, there are people who inflict harm upon other groups while practicing it, and there are people who interpret different ways of practicing Buddhism. Instead of having it be something done individually with no assistance, it is something that can be done with assistance of others, as seen in Mahayana and in American Buddhism. So now going on to our second point, which is the concept of suffering, or dukkha, which is central to Buddhism. In Buddhism, it is stated that people are always suffering in life due to the constant change that occurs. Because of this constant change, we are always wanting something, and that craving causes suffering. This is stated in the Four Noble Truths. Suffering exists. It arises from craving for things like pleasure. It ceases when those cravings are renounced, and the path that leads to that cessation is accomplished through the Noble Eightfold Path. And as you can see on the slide, this Noble Eightfold Path consists of right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. The ultimate goal is to escape this cycle of suffering by achieving nirvana, or otherwise known as escaping from the cycle of rebirth and death. This concept is important because it ultimately is what Buddhism is focused on combating in order to attain salvation from our mortality. Now, third and final concept is that this is a religion without a deity. While Mahayana Buddhists, which make up the majority of Buddhists, believe in the divinity of bodhisattvas, they do not believe in the idea of a god for Buddhism. This is unlike many other popular religions such as Christianity, Islam, and Hinduism, all of which believe in one or multiple deities. This in fact aligns with the concepts of Anatman, which states that there is no soul, and Anitya, which states that everything is impermanent and constantly changing. Since there is no God, there can be no permanent being in this universe, and it also means that there is no permanent soul that is actually created. It also shows how the first Buddha was not any deity, but rather a human who took it upon himself to become enlightened through his discipline and efforts. This shows how enlightenment isn't something that is out of reach for humans, but is rather attainable for those willing to follow that path. And that concludes my video. Thank you all for watching.